Overwatch 2 Season 9 is really fun. I've been playing all three roles and I've been having a great time. However, there's some outliers within those roles and some issues that I wanted to talk about that aren't necessarily being talked about everywhere, and I want to bring some light to it and get your guys' thoughts, which I love reading in the comments. So please keep commenting because I do love, reading the comments and everything. And we're going to talk about the goods, the bads, and all that good stuff right now in Season 9 and what Blizzard could do to maintain this momentum of making the game just more fun to play, and some things that are a little bit, like lower the frustration levels on certain things. Again, bear in mind, I've been playing a lot of all three roles, been playing mostly with my friends on alternate accounts. So I'm going to be looking at the game from a little bit more of a casual, average player perspective and not super high level play. That's kind of what I want to start doing more with this channel from now on. I kind of use like the comment section and my friends as like, like feedback. So please do keep commenting. I do read everything and I try to view it from as many perspectives as possible, but right now I will be thinking about, the 90% of the player base and not the 10%. So let's get started with the video. Overwatch 2 is fun, but, okay, so what are those buts that we need to talk about? No, not the buts on certain websites, another type of but as in there's some things that are just not fun. First of all, the tank role, there are some tanks right now that are just really fun to play, and then like the other side of the tank role is completely garbage. I definitely think, number one, people are sleeping on Orisa. Her potential is amazing with the projectile size increase. Her ability to actually stack up and just confirm kills is very good right now, and she's really good at even just denying dives at the average level of play and everything. Again, not talking about the high levels of play. I'm mostly going to consider up until low masters, and mostly I'll be referring to the metal ranks, since that's where my friends are and that's where I've been playing with them in 5 stacks and things like that. So Orisa I definitely think is amazing. D.Va is amazing, actually might be a bit too powerful or a bit too tanky right now. Winston is very fun to play, and I don't think there's ever a time where people don't like to play Winston Overwatch. Doomfist is a surprisingly good pick as well, so shout out to the Doom players. I've been playing a lot of Doomfist lately. I really enjoy solo queuing with him. He's a great pick. Junker Queen is also pretty good. And Zarya is a pretty good on and off pick, with Sigma, lasting the test of time because of such a powerful kit. Now, who are some of the outliers that suck a little bit, right? Without a doubt, in the tank role, the biggest losers when we transitioned over here is Reinhardt, Roadhog, and Mauga. Now, I don't want to start a debate on who has it the worst and who doesn't. I will say that Rein does have his maps where he's pretty good. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Like, there are places where you can make Rein work, but from an overall gameplay perspective, Rein is kind of in a really bad spot. He's very easily caught with his pants down and spanked out of the lobby. Roadhog and Mauga, it's like you are signing up for a torture session anytime you try to play those characters, and it's a little bit awkward. Like, they're definitely in a more awkward state in transitioning into the whole no one-shot mechanic and higher HP pools. It just kind of feels like they weren't properly accounted for. Especially Roadhog, whose entire gimmick relied on being able to, 1 or 2 tap characters. Right now, with the way everything is working, it feels really awkward. And because there's so much downtime until Roadhog can actually do a combo again, it's more than enough time for another tank, DPS, and support to just apply so much pressure onto Roadhog and just get rid of him from the lobby. The same also applies to Mauga, where unfortunately Mauga takes way too long to find value, and the name of the game right now is speed, and the faster you win a team fight, the better, right? I don't know what your guys' experiences are, but that's been what my experience has been, solo queue, duo queue, and in a 5 stack, like from what I've been seeing, at least from the tank role side of things, especially playing against these characters. That's how I felt like I could exploit their weaknesses. Ball is also a pretty good character, forgot to mention him, so just gonna keep, get that out the way. Wrecking Ball is not that bad. He's actually a pretty good pick, but the problem is a lot of players don't know how to play around the Wrecking Ball pick, so it can feel a little bit upsetting sometimes to play him. On the support side of things, I will say I've been playing a handful of support this past week especially, and I'm not going to lie, support feels a bit weird. There's certainly certain supports that feel very powerful right now. Zenyatta for sure. Moira turned out to be a very surprisingly strong pick this season. Lucio is also pretty good. And Brig is not that bad. Lifeweaver is really awkward and bad. Mercy is really... Actually, you know what? No, I think Mercy's in the middle. She's not bad. She's not good. You can force her as long as the DPS that you're playing with, as long as they're good and they can turn into a raid boss. Mercy's okay. Like, she's definitely not good. Don't get me wrong. She's okay. That's, the middle where I will leave her in. Illari needs a lot of help. I will say Lifeweaver needs a little bit of help. Kiriko is not that bad. You're definitely heal botting a lot more on this patch. The opportunity to confirm kills is, or actually even flank, is just so detrimental to Kiriko's old school flank playstyle, simply because it takes longer to kill somebody. By that point, they will respond to you, peel for that person. At least I've not been able to find success with it. Let me know what you guys think about Kiriko. She's one of the characters that I'm not sure how to exactly feel about. So I'd love to hear you guys' feedback. And Ana is also one of the same ones that in some games I feel like Ana is just amazing, and in other games I just feel like, wow, why am I playing this character when, DPS already have an anti, on them as a passive, and I can just use this nade to heal bot. So Ana's a bit of an awkward pick too. It really feels like right now any support that can enable aggression as quickly as possible is the go-to pick. So like Lucio, Mercy, Zen, Moira, just their ability to just really get a target into a good fighting position, or overwhelming the enemy with lots of damage, or applying any form of pressure. That seems to be the way to go. I will say though, I think Moira had probably the best transitional phase into this patch, just because whenever she uses especially when she uses her coalescence, she is so tanky. Before I could reliably kill Moiras out of the coalescence, now I'm having a really tough time denying coalescence. Coalescence is a pretty strong ult on the higher HP pools, and given Moira's survivability and everything. Now, overall, I do think the DPS passive, now moving over to DPS, I'm only going to talk about the passive POV, not necessarily the characters individually themselves as of right now. I will say I think the passive is a little bit much, right? And I do know that Alec Dawson had basically said that at the moment they have no plans to change it, simply because the point of this passive is for fights to finish. They don't want fights in Overwatch to drag out. They want this passive to not only give power to the DPS role, but also allow them to shut down fights as quickly as possible before they draw out too long, to the point where Overwatch begins to feel like a slogfest. Which is probably why it's a lot more fun to play, right? Because things are dying quicker, you're dying quicker, you're responding faster. It's just maybe that's the illusion of it all that makes the game, not illusion, but the feeling of it all that makes the game more fun to play is okay, well, I'm being rewarded. And the most amazing thing right now is you can actually duel somebody in a 1v2 who is being pocketed. If I'm Genji diving a pocketed Ashe, it actually feels like I don't have to first focus the Mercy. I can actually kill the Ashe first and then go chase after the Mercy. So it's a very interesting situation. I do think the DPS passive is a little bit overtuned. Perhaps the only nerf that would be nice would be reducing it from 20 to 15% and then seeing the impact that it has. And if it's bad, then you can easily hotfix 20% back in, because the alternative is that we buff some support heroes' numbers. And of course, assuming that the DPS passive is not online and you're steamrolling someone, if your supports are getting max value off of those new higher numbers, it's going to feel a little bit more overwhelming to be on the losing end, because again, by that logic, since the DPS passive is not being applied consistently onto your targets, they're able to just kind of go in, be a little bit more tankier and able to sustain themselves better in these fights compared to people that are just getting overwhelmed and falling over. I hope you guys understand what I'm saying. I'm making this video a little bit late into the night, so I might be a little bit sleepy, but I wanted to squeeze this in before the work the next day. So I want to hear your guys' opinion. What are your thoughts right now on the game as a whole? I will say this though, right? Characters that are definitely big standouts, that they're horrible, right? Now, don't get me wrong. I don't like playing against certain characters, and I particularly really dislike certain characters, but I understand that if a character has fallen so bad in terms of the fact that they can't even do their basic job that they were designed to do, then that character needs help. Number one, I definitely think Symmetra might need some help. And I know Overbuff is not the most reliable website, but over there she has significantly lost some of her win rate across the ranks, and it's the lowest that it's ever been. I think the last time I saw the statistic that somebody showed me in Twitter DM, it was 43%. So, oof, Symmetra is, wow, that's a really low winner. So maybe she needs just a little bit help. It is also really silly that Moira's beam does more damage than Symmetra's lowest level beam, and then Zarya does more damage than Symmetra's highest level beam. That's a little bit awkward, right? She's supposed to be the DPS character, and they're doing more than her. An argument could be made is that, well, she applies the DPS passive, but come on now, that's a little bit silly, right? Sim could use a little bit of help. It's come on now, like she's in a bit of a rough spot. So from the DPS role, Sim needs a little bit of help. Now, moving over to the support role, I think 𝐒𝐈𝐈 needs the help the most. 𝐒𝐈𝐈, like 𝐓𝐈𝐈𝐓, even though I don't like him and I consider him to be somewhat of a tropic in certain compositions, I do think you can still force 𝐓𝐈𝐈𝐓 to work in certain spots, but 𝐒𝐈𝐈 feels so bad to play, to the point that I'm talking about this again. 𝐒𝐈𝐈 needs a lot of help, and Blizzard needs to make that a massive priority. I already made a video on talking about what they can do to help her. She's like my favorite support to play other than Ana and Zenyatta at the moment. So I would really like to see some changes to 𝐒𝐈𝐈. I really don't like the state that she's in, if I'm being honest. I could make her work for all these seasons, even after all her nerfs, but at the moment, she just feels so underwhelming to play, and wherever you can play a poke damage-based support, why would I ever pick 𝐒𝐈𝐈 when Zenyatta is just miles better? So really don't like the state of 𝐒𝐈𝐈. Really hope they can help the girl out a little bit. She's in a lot of trouble. So again, from the DPS role, I'm looking at Sim. Support role, I'm looking at 𝐒𝐈𝐈. And tank. Okay, this one is a little bit controversial. I'm completely fine with Mauga being bad. We've been in a Mauga meta. Let's not forget it's the most boring state of the game. So Mauga being bad or a bit of a niche pick is completely fine with me. But from the tank role, I definitely think Reinhardt needs a lot of help. Now, this is where Blizzard has to flip a coin and decide what they want to do. Do we make Reinhardt more lethal, up close and personal, so that if you get into a good position, you are applying a lot of damage, you are like a threat that should be respected? Or do we make Reinhardt more tanky in being able to keep the shield up? Now, Blizzard has said that they don't like the idea of shield uptime being higher in Overwatch 2. So the way I see it is like, maybe we increase Ryan's lethality. Let's buff Firestrike a little bit. Let's give him a little bit more damage on the pins. I think it's okay if Ryan has these mechanics. They're very fair, they're very predictable, they're very easy to dodge, they're very easy to even counter. So these are just some things that I'd like to see. I've not made like a full list of how I'd buff the characters that I just listed, but the notable standouts for me this season are Reinhardt needs a buff, Symmetra needs a buff, and 𝐒𝐈𝐈 needs a buff. These are the top three, in my opinion, priorities that definitely need buffs before anything else. Now, who needs nerfs? I think D.Va could use a little bit of, like, she could lose a little bit of her tankiness from her armor pool and replace it with HP, because she's insanely tanky this season, and to the point that beam heroes on her just feel practically useless. At least in my experience, like it really just feels really difficult to get rid of D.Va right now from her mech, and a good D.Va with good map control can completely turn the game on the head, right? Even in like Metal Rank or Diamond Masters, these D.Va players are out of control. They're so good right now, right? On the damage roll, I definitely think a character that's really strong is 100% like, okay, so here's the weird one, right? I don't know for the damage roll. I think there are characters that are definitely strong, like Tracer and Sojourn are really strong, but they're both characters that do need a little bit like more, like, you know, you have to be good at them. It's not like your Bob, Dick, and Joe can pick up Tracer and be really good on her. So I think Tracer, kind of leave her as is and let the game go on and see what happens. Sojourn, the only nerf I would suggest for her is because, again, she's a very she can sometimes end up in some really awkward states. Only nerf I recommend for Sojourn is get rid of that buff that she got where her minimum charge rate stays at 25%. Reduce that back to 0, and I think Sojourn will, like, kind of, you know, as the game goes on, kind of level herself out. Otherwise, I'm a fan of both Tracer and Sojourn, as well as all the other DPSs that are pretty viable right now. I do think from the damage side of things are okay. Maybe Reaper needs a little bit of a buff on Death Blossom, because it's really hard to get any kills with that ultimate. But that's just my thoughts right now on Season 9, everybody. Like, what do you think, right? Like, what are your thoughts on tank, damage, and support? I would love to hear them down below. Once again, if you want to support the channel for free, liking and subscribing is a great way to help out with the algorithm, helps the channel grow, helps me get paid, and that means the world to me. And if you want to support somebody who's, like, legit in their final year of Masters, and it's a pretty expensive 10-year, I would appreciate any financial support, and much love to anybody that does send it my way. And even if you can't, it's okay. Your support in any free way that you can do so is much appreciated. With that being said, I will see you guys in the next video.